up, guys? Coach Andrew Simmons from Lifelong Endurance here, as well as the host of the Defining Endurance podcast. And I thought I would do a quick webisode here and talk a little bit about how we structure training, and really kind of talk about, how do we look at periodization? As a coach, one of the things that I find myself doing a lot is trying to understand, where does training fit in my athlete's life? When it comes down to it, we can't always fit into that perfect 3-to-1. Maybe you've seen a 10-day cycle. I think the big thing to understand here is that periodization is not just about, on a granular level. You could look at periodization at a single day's level, where you're doing a workout in the morning, recovering, and another stimulus in the evening. And that could be a lot of different things. You could do speed work in the evening, maybe just some easy 200s or some up-tempo 200s. Where you did an easy run in the morning. It could be a recovery effort after a workout that you did in the morning instead. So then periodization kind of builds on itself and becomes something a little bit bigger. What does your periodization look like in a single week? When do you get stimulus? By a majority for higher level athletes, we're seeing a Tuesday, Friday, and then some sort of long run Saturday, Sunday type of stimulus with recovery in between. Now we go out another layer and we start thinking about, what are we doing inside a single month? Are we building up for 3 weeks and recovering for a week? This really all depends on what kind of athlete you are. And what I mean by that is, what's your training history? How old are you? How much recovery do you need? When I work with masters athletes, by majority men and women over the age of 40, 45, I start taking that 3-to-1 periodization and I move it to a 2-to-1 periodization. Now that does mean that the cycle becomes extended. So we need more training time, more time to build up to that peak race. But it allows them more recovery. As we age, we're not able to recover as quickly as we did when we were younger. Even if we are getting enough sleep, there's just a certain amount of physiological adaptation that you're able to do when you're younger that you can't do when you're older. Now, the reality here is that masters at 2-to-1 versus a regular 3-to-1, it's extended. But the reality is you're able to get in a lot of the same work, and actually that high intensity over threshold anaerobic work actually becomes even more important. And this is a whole nother discussion when we become a master's athlete. That heart is still a muscle that we need to flex and work. So that's why it's so important. Now let's go back to the periodization here. When we get outside of that 3-to-1 month, then we start to think about cycles, right? We think about an introductory period, a fundamental period, maybe a specific endurance period, and then a sharpening period. So that's really a whole cycle. And then we think about maybe Olympians or other people. They may go through a cycle that's 2 or 3 buildups within a single year. They may do a spring marathon, some sort of track racing season, and a longer distance race in the fall. And then an off season, right? There's our recovery phase. That would be our 1. That would be like a 3-to-1 yearly periodization. So then now we think about an Olympic cycle. They've got 3 years and then 1 year where they need to be super sharp and building up and running really, really fast and hitting those, really important races so that they can qualify and get to the Olympics. So what I wanted you guys to kind of bring into an understanding is that, yes, recovery is actually probably the most important part of this. And a lot of people always structure in build. But think about it like this. If you're trying to build a bigger bucket, it's an analogy that I've used in the past about how we build fitness. What this really comes down to is that you need 3 weeks to kind of fill that bucket up with water, right? That's building fitness. And if you think about workouts, we're dumping that bucket out. And so we want to get really good at being able to dump that bucket out, fill it back up, dump it out, fill it back up. But if we want to do more, you think about increasing your mileage, we actually need to physically build a bigger bucket. So we may be really good at, building, filling the bucket with water, dumping the water out. These would be things like intervals, maybe tempo work where we're slowly, emptying that bucket out. But at the end of the day, if we want to be able to do more, run faster or further, we have to have a bigger bucket. That means our capacity has to grow larger. Well, at some point you have to stop and build the damn bucket. That's the rest week. That's the time when you have the ability to sit down and spend a little bit more time on mobility, recovery, nutrition, sleeping. That's when you're absorbing all of that. And you kind of have to think of that week as letting the glue dry on the next layer of bucket that you're building, these really thin layers. And you can have 3 more weeks where you're filling the bucket up, emptying the bucket out, day in and day out. I think the biggest thing to understand is that on those days in between where you've really poured the bucket out, your workouts, you have to refill that bucket without, letting a lot of that water out of the bucket on the days in between, because you need to start your next workout with a full bucket of water. So the reality is that you need to not just dump the whole thing out. So don't go out and run zone 3 on those days in between those workouts. You're letting too much water out. You're not going to have enough energy when it comes to the days that you really, really need it. Okay. So this goes back to nutrition. This goes back to sleep. This goes back to mobility and recovery. And did you set yourself up for success when it came to the off season? So again, this goes back to periodizing even in the gym. Did you do the strength training that you needed to do so then you had the capacity, both physiologically, neuromuscularly, as well as physically? Can you physically do the thing? So then you can build the mileage. Do you have the body, right? All of this comes back to building small cycles of things. So when you also look at a race, you can look at this and kind of do this backwards. This is my entire job as a coach. If I have an athlete that's going to go run a really hilly marathon, I'm going to create a period of training there where we're focused on hitting hills that are very similar to what we're going to experience on race day. And so that's a specific period. We have to recover after that. So as you build out training, as you think about training, I want you guys to look at in really 4 ways. You have a fundamental period. This could be time when you're lifting heavier in the gym, doing base work. You can call it your base phase, fundamental period, whatever works for you. And then basically after that, we're going to move into specific endurance, right? I'm assuming introductory already happened. So introductory, fundamental, specific endurance, and then sharpening. So if we've got that fundamental work, that could be 2, 3, 4 cycles. And then specific endurance could be 1 or 2 cycles. And then you could really get into that sharpening phase when you have that big peak race. You can have other races that are built out in between there to kind of test a theory. Hey, does this work? Do the things that I'm doing, does that make sense? So I will leave it at that. Periodization can be a really deep, in-depth topic. A lot of what we've done as coaches in the US comes from Eastern Bloc periodization. If you guys are looking for some really good books, I recommend an author named Tudor Bompa. And a lot of his work is around a lot of other different types of sports training. I also like authors like Vern Gambetta. If you guys are looking for specific things around marathon training, I really like Brad Hudson and Matt Fitzgerald's work. There are a lot of places you can get your information from. I appreciate you guys sticking here with me for 7.5 minutes to talk all about periodization and training. I hope this was a helpful episode. If you came here from a short, do me a favor, go ahead, like and subscribe on this video because I'm going to put more and more of this content out. If you guys want some of these on even longer form, if this was too short for you, I do entire solo episodes on Defining Endurance, which is our podcast, which is linked below. And that's really a way for you guys to get more and more of this information. So I appreciate you guys supporting this. Give it a like, subscribe, help us grow this. We'll see you guys in a few weeks.